Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Dale's Rails. And this week, what I have is, I have another new arrival to the layout. And this is a post-war model. The only post-war version of this locomotive that I'm aware of. And it's not from Lionel. And this is a model of a Fairbanks Morse consolidated line, otherwise known as their C-Liners. I know when I think of Fairbanks Morse, I think of Trainmaster. So let's check this out and see what we got. Well, this isn't anything special. It's something I picked up off of eBay. It's actually a little project I'm looking to do. You know, the seller listed these as parts. You know, it wasn't tested, I think. I don't know, it didn't say it didn't work. I think he said it wasn't tested for parts only. So we'll see here. I mean, it's nothing special. This is an engine and dummy that matches another engine that I bought at a train show. You can see they're kind of smallish. So these are off. Kind of neat. They put a little wrap around this, and then they put a little thank you on there. It just says, "Thank you for supporting my small business." That's kind of neat. And sometimes they leave you little notes in here. That's always kind of like that. And this is just some type of like saran wrap all around here over bubble wrap. A lot of times you can just unsnap these. So you can see what we got here. Here's a dummy unit for the Marx. I don't know how you say this. Monon. I don't know. You guys can tell me. Is that Monon or Monon? And it matches a power unit I have. And then the other one here is a power unit. So that gives me 2 Monon power units and a dummy. So that way I'm going to convert these so I can run them as an ABA set. I guess that is if we have a working engine here. I'm just going by their description. Okay. Wow, that looks in pretty good shape. It's pretty tight. You know, that looks in really good shape. It needs a little bit of wax. You know, these are tin, and you can tell these are not the high-end model by any means. But you know, I'm not really necessarily all about high-end models necessarily. You know, I like quite a few different things. So I didn't know it was going to have it's got that kind of odd Marx knuckle coupler on here. So that looks like that could be easily converted to a tab and slot like what's on the front here. So I'll probably redo that. And of course, these power units only come with a coupler on the rear, so I'm going to have to add a coupler on the front. So like I said, it's going to be a little bit of a project for me, which I kind of had that in mind when I got it. You know, I've been wanting to get a B unit ever since I got the power unit because it just doesn't look right running as a single power unit. So I don't know. Let's see if we can get this thing to run. What do you think? You think it'll run? It's a Marx. How bad can it be? I guess it could be pretty bad. Let's see. Uh-oh. I hear something trying to start. Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to have to fix this. The drawbar is hanging down far enough. It's shorting out against the rail, so that's not good. See if I can, this coupler here needs some persuasion. There we go. It's a little bit bent. I think this is going to run just fine. I could tell by the pictures it looked like it was in pretty good shape. Oh, that's not good. That drawbar is just way too long. I'm going to have to do some corrective measures on that. Hopefully that's drawbar so long it's hanging down and hitting the center rail. Now, these aren't very big engines, as you can see. They didn't make them full size by any means. Well, it's going to run, but it only wants to run backwards. You can see there's a lot of arcing. It needs cleaning severely bad. So we got a runner. I'm not concerned about it. It's going to take a little bit of servicing, and I think we got a runner here. Well, I took this over to the workbench real quick to try to figure out what was going on with this drawbar thing, and this little tab had slipped out, and of course that's the back plate that holds the back of the motor in, and it was shifted enough that it was causing this to lean. And take a look at the top of that shell in there. That's got a bunch of oil, it looks like, shot on the roof of that motor. And take a look at this motor. All the oil that they managed to get on the side of that, none of it's where it belongs. I thought I had a blown rod maybe, but that's more oil than the Exxon Valdez. And then I couldn't help myself. I had to touch it. And of course, I don't know what that is. That stuff is not oil. That feels like honey. I mean, that's so sticky. So I'm going to get this crap out of there, and we'll come back. Well, guys, I couldn't take that anymore. I had to take that over there and get it serviced. And, I'm adding it with my other A unit here. As luck would have it, both of the E units are stuck in the orientation I need to run these. So, it worked out. And I found a way to couple it up here so I could pull a little consist. And, it's really amazing. After I pulled Winnie the Pooh's lunch out of there and enough hair, I think, to make a wig. And I'm pretty sure I found the other end of the rope that was lost there at the Muddy Pit on Oak Island. I am amazed that this engine could even run. So I guess that's just a testament just how bulletproof these Marx motors are. So we get it running here and take a quick look at it. Well, this is going to be a fun little set to run. It's going to be a really good puller. It's going to have two engines, each with a double reduction motor. So this thing will be a strong puller, given its size. So it'll be power packed, little set. This is the Marx motor out of the C-Liner. I brought it back over here to the workbench, just to service the internal parts of the motor. And I apologize, I didn't have the camera on and running. I thought I had it rolling. And, I just cleaned off the outside portion and did a quick lube of this just to see if it would run. And I'm really amazed it even ran, because if you guys seen my last video, the Lionel
Missouri Pacific Alco, how blackened it was inside that motor. Well, this motor was just as bad. So the difference being is, the Lionels, this was all dried and it didn't run. And this was still had some moisture content to it. It was still sticky, kind of like the outside of this. It's amazing how this motor was even running. And so, I brought it back over. I knew it was going to need servicing. I just didn't service it, the internal portions of the motor, before I shot the first video session of this running. And while I have this apart, I wanted to kind of share with you guys some of the issues I ran into on these motors. And other than the obvious, cleaning is usually a necessity on these models that haven't been ran for a while. And maybe a broken wire. And, those can be similar to these other issues that I've run into. The broken wire obviously is going to be, well, it doesn't run at all. And so these other issues are usually going to be something that the motor may try to run, but it runs poorly. And these are things I ran into. And one of them being this bottom screw here. If you can see here, it mounts and ties and grounds this brush holder to the frame. So that's really the purpose of this little, generally it's a Phillips head. So that's the purpose of that Phillips head screw. And if it's loose, you're going to have issues with this motor running poorly or intermittently. The other issue can be similar. If you look on this brush plate, hopefully you guys can see, there's a little brass bushing that goes through the brush plate here that your armature shaft comes through. Those can detach from the brush plate, and if they do, they will fall down in amongst the armature here, and you'll get very poor running. In fact, you can pull that brush plate off, and sometimes it will come off with the brush plate, and you may not notice it and put it all back together and start having the same identical problem and not know why. So you're servicing, you want to kind of check this out. I'm not sure what really holds that in, but it's in there pretty solid. It may just be, press fit into the, this plastic brush plate. So those are two issues that I've ran into on some of these motors, and I've ran into this issue here on the bushing, falling down and shorting out here in your armature commutator plates, to be more common than you would think. The other issue could be, which is going to be less common, you can see each one of the commutator plates are soldered here. You're going to have issues if one of those commutator plates come loose. Now, I've been able, believe it or not, to just glue this back in place with super glue. And that was 5 years ago, and that engine's still running today. So it worked. I wasn't sure if it would because of the heat in here. So maybe it's just the type of super glue that I use. But, that worked to, refasten this commutator plate. Because if it comes loose, it's going to lead to poor running. You're going to see a lot of arcing going on in here if that happens. And same thing with this little bushing. So these are very easy to work on. Usually, most Marx motors, this is a double reduction, which is a little surprising. They put it in this little small diesel because, they tend to use like their single reduction motor. And this is the same double reduction motor you're going to find in the 666 and the 1666 and even the little 70-ton diesels. They retain these Baldwin disc drivers even. The difference being is your back set of drivers here are the ones without the stud for the drawbar. And, so if you wanted to use this for your steam engines, you'd have to, swap your wheels out with studded wheels. And, this is also the same motor, essentially, that they used in, the plastic E7 diesels. So it's a pretty common motor, and even their single reduction motors is very similar to this design. There's only just a few different motor designs that Marx used. And so to put this back on, you want to make sure, of course, this screw is securely fastened in place. The Marx motors are very easy to work on in the fact that I can just take the brush well springs and stick a toothpick or some other small object and pry that spring out of the way to open these brush wells for you. And so it's real easy to service them that way. The other thing I wanted to kind of point out, these Marx nuts that hold the type or hold the top of the brush plate on, if you look at those real close, one side's concave and one side's convex. So concave means it's got a internal, and convex meaning it's got an external radius on here. So these nuts should be put back on because of that, with the convex or the concave side facing down and the convex side facing up. What that's going to do, it's going to keep this nut, you don't really have to torque on these to get them really tight, but you want to give them tight enough, that they're not going to risk coming loose. And that concave design of this nut, I don't know if it was designed intentionally for this in mind, but without having to use like a lock washer, it kind of helps that nut stay in place where it doesn't back out. So you want to make sure you're putting these small little nuts back in place. And, they just come off with a 1/4-inch nut driver, so that's handy. And you don't have to really, you just want to turn them to their snug. You don't want to really crank on those. I got to be a little careful here because I got a screwdriver I can put a lot of torque on. So there's the motor back in place. The other thing is these other side of the armature. This is a keyed bushing on this side that the shaft comes through. So you have to just keep rotating this around until the key lines up and locks in place to make sure your armature is set at the proper depth. Before you put your brushes in, you can see how easy that freewheels. It should freewheel like that. That's usually a good indication you've got the gear positioned correctly on this side. And then it's pretty simple just to put these brushes back in. You're kind of like a Lionel in that regard. You just drop them in. I cleaned these up on a Scotch-Brite pad just because they were pretty dirty. Okay, so those are in. I'll rotate this little slot in line with the brush spring when it snaps in place. And these brush springs are real easy to pop out of the way, unlike the Lionel. And then you can just simply, hopefully you guys can see this, simply just raise up on this and it snaps back in place. So that spring is set in place. You want to make sure it's got good alignment. And then we'll go over here and do the other one. You just slide this toothpick underneath that spring and just snap it in place. And that's all there is to service the Marx motor. It's just a couple of brush springs and these 3 different fasteners here. So you can see how freely that freewheels even with the brushes inside. So this motor is getting looser all the time. One last thing before I go, guys. I thought I'd share with you. I was at my local Menards earlier this week, primarily to see if they had some of the materials I was going to need to do this little project here, and also to see perhaps maybe if they were putting out their train items. And it turns out that they were. So, they had moved these up to the mezzanine where the trains would be stored. So they had these discounted, I think, for $4.98. I don't know how well this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. If you guys have seen some of the YouTube videos where guys are converting a bug zapper into a static grass applicator. And it was something that I was trying to find a way to do this without spending a bunch of money, just simply because I've got some areas on my layout. I want to do some larger areas of static grass, but they're probably just a little too large to try to do it with the pinch and stab method. It would be probably pretty tedious. And, I really don't have a large enough layout to really justify spending that kind of money on a static grass applicator. So I'm going to give this a shot. Hopefully it'll work out. And, they had this bug zapper here, and then it was like $4.98. This little strainer was the only one they had. It was a little over $5. I already had this tubing. I picked these up. They were a couple of bucks. And, they come in a 2-pack. And I got the insulated one. They do have cheaper ones if you want to go cheaper. And then the two different sizes of tubing here. The plan here is to cut this hoop off. And then I can sleeve. I like this nice long handle. It's going to fit back in here really far to give you some extra support. And that way I can sleeve the 1/4-inch tube over the handle, and then this 7/16 tube will sleeve over that, which will take up the gap here more in this handle when I put it back on. The nice thing about this, it's all held together with screws, so it's really easy to disassemble and do this. And the parts in here are pretty basic, nothing complicated. It also has this bottle opener, so when I get done, I might have the only static grass applicator that comes with a bottle opener. So I'm going to give this a try. While you're there, it might be a good idea to pick up 2 of these. They're so cheap. It worked out for my purposes anyway, because we've had 7 inches of surplus rain this year, and it turns out we really got a bad mosquito problem. And, if you have a mosquito hitch a ride on you into your house, it's real fun trying to chase him down. He's real easy to catch if he lands on you, but, they're pretty elusive. So this work's been working real good. You can see I've already bought 2 myself, and I've already started the process of assembling this. And it really is going to go really quick. This won't take long at all to do. And then while I was there, as luck would have it, they had a couple of new cars that I picked up. They had this Sinclair tank car. This is a reverse color scheme of the original or first car they released. And so I decided I need one of those. And they had these really neat Pepsi box cars there. There was 4 different ones. They only had 4, and all 4 were different. I picked this one out just because it matches the graphics of my Pepsi flat car with trailer on flat car in that cab unit. And, after I get it home, I check it out, and it says right on here, Pepsi box car with 1950s era artwork. And you can see here it's got looks like a couple little Keystone Cops with a carton of Pepsi that they're scoping out here. And, I think these are pretty sharp looking. So, if you happen to be by your local Menards, they may have some of these items out for you too. I just thought I'd bring this to your attention. So that's all I have for this week. And until next time, you have been watching Dale's Rails. Thanks for watching.